Hey everybody, good afternoon. It is Stereo Police and it is Tuesday afternoon on a snowy day here in Central Virginia. I'm out back, there's one of the horses. We're just recovering from 6 or 8 inches of snow. It's starting to melt now. I'm kind of bundled up back here. Can't really see it, but it's pretty windy. Blustery day. And I happen to be enjoying so I'm going to be out back here for a good half hour to 45. If I can keep this thing lit on a cold day like today. So I purchased a new pair of speakers. I'm going to do a review. I've got so many things going on outside of the audio hobby. It's been really hard to pursue the hobby, though. It's one of my first joys and my first passions. But I came across a pair of speakers that intrigued me. You know, within the hobby, well, let me back up and say this. I'm going to make this a multi-part series because I don't even have the speakers yet. They're on order. And I'm going to nurture this experience. I'm going to nurture the review and the process. I think everything needs to be nurtured. Everything's too fast. I don't even like having conversations, over text and IM, and unless they're quick business things. I like getting together in person with friends, I like nurturing things, like a cigar, I don't like smoking. I never smoked anything in my life. I don't inhale anything. I don't do any other than wine, caffeine. I don't do any substances, but from time to time I like to enjoy one of these because you got to nurture it. It's a slow process. And if you're with friends, you got to sit down, take your time, relax. You're in it for the long haul. There's no rushing. If you're rushing through it, you're defeating the point. It's all about relaxation. It's about the art of the conversation. It's about giving space to the sentences, to the thoughts, to the story. The art of the conversation. The art of storytelling. Granted, I'm not that good at it. I try, but the art of the conversation, the art of storytelling, the art of nurturing nurturing a story or a conversation and that kind of thing. It's been quashed by electronic media. I'm not trying to criticize it. I'm just saying it's just the way it is. Everyone's into the mic information and quick this and quick that. Well, that's not me. I'm going to wrap this back into my latest review. Just like I like nurturing the buying experience and process, the unboxing, the listening, even the reviewing process to some extent. I'm gonna drag this review out because I'm really intrigued by these speakers. I hope they're going to be what I expect they're going to be. And they're for my other house. They're for that. The last review that I did is my house out on the mountainside. A cottage. It's a cottage, tiny little cottage. And I have that sound room because I no longer have a sound room here because my dad lives with me, and I built out that space in the basement for my dad to live there. I have zero, no, nada, nothing here for audio room. So my only audio room is at that cottage, and it's a pretty small room. And as you all know, you've got to choose your speakers carefully based on your room dimensions, your room configuration, even taking into consideration the materials in the room. In my room there is essentially hardwood floors, even hardwood exposed beam wood ceilings, and wood paneling on the sides. I do have some carpet on the floors and some furnishings in there, and you do the clap test in there, and there's no real reverberations. It's pretty dead. And I've had some success with the speakers. I've listened to the Klipsch, what are those little Klipsch speakers? I'll tell you when I go back to the cottage. NT5060, those little Klipsch guys. I've listened to some Epicures. I'm going to show you when I go there. And I've listened to those ADS, LS, whatever they are. Damned if I can remember. Go to the last video, which I loved there. I love them. These speakers, am I even going to tell you what the hell they are today? I think I'm even going to give the company a call and see if I can talk to the owner. Small company, I think. Well, let me tell you what they are and why I was intrigued by them. Now, I'm sorry, I'm holding the cell phone. All I have is my cell phone. Sorry if it's jiggling. Maybe I should try to prop it up somewhere so I don't make you seasick. Yeah, fuck it, get seasick. I like you guys who accuse me of making you seasick. As if you just can't listen and not look. Speakers, let me just go tangential for a second. Loudspeakers have always been the most intriguing thing to me. And even as a child, even as a kid growing up, and what fascinates me about loudspeakers and draws me to them, let me even back up a little further. I think we can all agree, hopefully, that among all the different types of hi-fi equipment, from amplifiers to preamplifiers to turntables absent cartridges to transports to even to DACs to some degree. Loudspeakers and phono cartridges, those two devices right there tend to be the most diverse sounding when you go from one to the other. The most diverse sounding devices in the audio world. Very, very different sounding when you switch them out from one to another. And very different in design as well. Very different types of designs. When you get, into the realm of very good amplifiers, the differences are very, you need the golden ear to tell the differences. A lot of times. But man, when you switch phono cartridges, the difference often night and day. When you switch loudspeakers, the difference is often night and day. And it's not always for the better, sometimes it's just different. It's not always for the better. Sometimes one improves in this area, and degrades in that area. You know, it depends on what the designer, it's always trade-offs. You can never get one thing perfect in all areas when it comes to those devices. Why is that? You know, why are phono cartridges and loudspeakers just so different sounding? And the answer really is because they are energy transducers, transformers. They're transducers that transform one type of energy to another. They transfer energy from one domain to another. And what I mean by that is, try to use layman's terms here. I don't want to go back to my physics. They are transducers. And for example, a phono cartridge will transform mechanical oscillations into electrical or electromagnetic, transverse electromagnetic waves. That's simple. Well, it's not simple, actually. There's a lot that could go wrong in that process. There's a lot of things that, especially when you're in the world of mechanics. And you're also in the realm of the very, very teeny weeny tiny as well when it comes to the things that have to move. That's a transducer. It's an energy transducer. Two types of energy. Very, very different that have to be transformed. Mechanical to electrical. And there are many different ways of doing it. Moving coil, moving magnet, and then within those ways there's different configurations, etc., etc. They're going to sound very diverse from one to the other. And there's a lot that can go wrong, many kinds of distortions that can happen. Let's move on. Now, when it comes to other devices like amplifiers, they're not transforming energy from one form to another. They're simply amplifying the same form of energy. An amplifier is simply amplifying electromagnetic waves to higher amplitude electromagnetic waves, let's say, and having the ability to supply more current to a load. But you're not transforming electrical, to mechanical. They're not doing that. Even to some degree, a DAC is still electrical to electrical. Now, it's changing domains. You're going from the digital domain to the analog domain, let's say, but it's still electrical to electrical. Now, let's move on to the loudspeaker. Man, I'm on a tangent. You get me smoking a cigar, I could talk all friggin' day. A loudspeaker is the same thing, but it's kind of, sort of, but not quite the reverse of a phono cartridge. I say kind of, sort of, but not quite. Think about what a loudspeaker's doing. It is the reverse of a phono cartridge, but on a grand scale. Let's keep it simple. So, a loudspeaker has got to take an amplified signal, an electromagnetic wave, an audio signal. And let's just think of a full range loudspeaker. Let's not get into crossovers and all that crap. Let's just take a full range, simple cone, paper cone loudspeaker, with a surround and a voice coil. Simple as you can get. And it's got to take that, and it's got to convert that signal into a mechanical motion. So that is quite the opposite of what a phono cartridge does. Phono cartridge, mechanical motion to electrical. Loudspeaker, electrical to a mechanical motion. A lot could go wrong. There's a lot of challenges that have to be overcome there in the mechanical area. In the mechanical area, when it comes to things that could cause distortion, when we're talking the surrounds, we're talking the cone material, breakups, and the list goes on and on. But a loudspeaker has one other, well, many others, but one other major hurdle to overcome. It's not enough just to take the electrical, which passes through the voice coil, and the voice coil rides through a magnet, and then all of a sudden the voice coil moves in somewhat, mostly in proportion to the electrical signal. The voice coil is attached to the cone, and the cone moves. Okay, so we have the mechanical motion. So now the cone is moving in proportion to into the electrical signal, and all is happy, everyone's happy. But then we have all of these possible distortions that can happen before we even talk about air and the room. You know, we have cone breakup, we have how the wave, the pressure wave can travel down the actual cone itself, and how it's terminated at the basket and maybe can reflect back. We have the traveling wave theory. We've got the way a cone breaks up. We have the materials can actually have certain properties. We have we also have properties of the voice coil riding through the magnet. We have induction, of the voice coil itself. We have all these things that can cause distinct character of the speaker right there. But then we have to talk about, and I'm going to terminate this in a minute and move on to the speaker that I'm going to review. I'm just talking why speakers intrigue me. And then we have to talk about room coupling. That speaker has to do one thing that a phono cartridge doesn't have to do, and the speaker has to take this this cone motion and then create sound. And it creates sound. Of course, the cone is moving in and out, creating condensations and rarefactions, pressures, increases in pressure and decreases in pressure that are going to move throughout the room at the speed of sound in the air in the room. And that speaker is a transducer, and it's that speaker, like any other system. That speaker itself has an inherent impedance, acoustic impedance, and the room has its own impedance. Let's call it an input impedance, and then that speaker has an output impedance, and the two have to mesh, and they're not going to be the same. And so that speaker has a hell of a hurdle to overcome. Now, I'm not going to get into technicalities here, but the speaker itself has a huge disadvantage. The room is kicking that speaker's ass. Let me put it that way. And I talked in one of my previous videos about how horn loading and compression drivers can kind of overcome that disadvantage. But let me sum it up. All of that stuff makes it really, really challenging for a speaker to do its job. But nevertheless, this little simple thing, a speaker is a very simple motor. It's a reciprocating motor is all it is, instead of a rotating motor, a loudspeaker. It's a reciprocating motor. It's all it is, and it's a very, very simple design. The design of a loudspeaker, of a simple cone loudspeaker, hasn't changed hardly at all, except for materials, since its inception. It's amazing. Throughout all of our technological advancement, it hasn't changed. Hardly at all. Except for materials. Yet, we've managed to create loudspeakers that do a absolutely stunning, marvelous job at reproducing sound. Now, what has changed are the teal small parameters. That's helped us design cabinets better. Cabinet materials, computer numerical coordinate machine manufacturing. It's really cabinet design and cone and dome materials that have come a long way, and to some extent crossover design as well. But nevertheless, I'll say this, and this is where I'm gonna segue into my why I chose these speakers and the review I'm doing. I'll say this: I don't care what anyone says. You go get me one of these, I don't know, $50,000 a pair of Wilsons or whatever the hell these knuckleheads, not knuckleheads, but these very fabulously wealthy people need this eye candy they need to have. And I'm sure they sound great, but I guarantee you get a good speaker designer and give that speaker designer a budget of $1,000 for just for raw materials. Just for raw materials, not and looks. Forget looks. Forget fit and finish. Just design me some cabinets and build me a good two-way speaker. Manufacturer of your choice for the drivers. And that good speaker designer will get me 90% of the way there, or more, to that $30,000+ pair of speakers. I guarantee it, at least to my ears. That's how I feel. When you get into a certain price range, you're reaching a point of very, very diminishing returns, and a lot of what you're paying for is eye candy, or status, or voodoo, or you're paying for the psychological factor. You think, therefore it is. Yeah, you're getting more, but it's a very diminished amount more. It's kind of like, driving a car. My car will do 0 to 60 in, like I'm just giving you an example, 4.2 seconds, and I might have to pay an extra $100,000 to get it down to 3.9 seconds, and I'm not going to hardly tell the difference between that two in the 0 to 60s when I drive it. Maybe a bad analogy, but anyway. Okay, the speaker that I bought, I was intrigued by it, and I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute. I'm building this up as if it's a big deal. It's no big deal, really. It's not any big deal. I was intrigued by this speaker because when I saw it, it appeared to use an old-fashioned, what looked like an old Jensen-type full-range cone. Blue in color with a whizzer in the middle, a whizzer cone, which is something they used to use on full range speakers back in the day to extend the high frequencies. So you take a large like 6, 8, 10 inch woofer, it's going to have a very challenging time with that kind of mass of that cone to reproduce high frequencies. But if you want to convert that into a fuller range speaker, you put this little whizzer, this little tiny cone in the middle of it. It doesn't have its own voice coil. It's just a smaller, thinner piece of paper in the middle that sticks out, that's attached directly to the voice coil. We used to be called a whizzer. I don't know what they call it now. You have woofers, mid-range tweeters, and you had whizzers. And that little lower mass piece of paper attached directly to the voice coil would be a better coupling for high frequencies that were reproduced by the voice coil, be a better acoustic coupling to the air for the high frequencies, and hence it would reproduce high frequencies better for that large diameter speaker, whereas the actual cone couldn't do it, but the whizzer could do it. And so it looked like a full range speaker. It looked like a commercial speaker, but like an old Jensen. And then yet it was stuffed into this tower type cabinet and it looked like an old Jensen type speaker you would use in a commercial, maybe a guitar amp or something, but yet it had 2 ports. So the designer was doing a ported design with a speaker that looked like it was stiff. It had a compliance that looked like it was probably designed for some, like an open back or an infinite baffle type design. I'm like, wow, what the hell? And then above it appeared to be some kind of electrostatic or some kind of like an emit. Remember the old infinity emit tweeters? Some kind of a ribbon type tweeter. And I looked at this and the whole thing looked audacious. Like, why on earth would a designer... It looked like a Mr. Potato Head. I'm thinking, what the hell was this designer thinking? This guy's either crazy or he's... But I liked it. First of all, I liked the looks of it. I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, okay, let me tell you what it is. Bring it up on my tablet here. My hands are freezing. It's the Tecton. You guys are probably familiar with that company. I'm not so much familiar with it. They're fairly new to me. I don't know how to pronounce it. Uruz. Is it Urez? I have no idea how to pronounce it. Uruz? Urez? I'm just being facetious. They're $1,200 a pair. Delivered. I got them in orange. And I went ahead and bought the $300 upgrade package, which includes some upgraded internals. Some images here. So you can go on, the website and look for yourself, but I thought it looked like a pretty handsome speaker there. Go ahead on the website and look for yourself. There are very limited specs given here. Here's what it says on the specs. Read it for yourself. 10-inch transducer. Doesn't tell me anything about the woofer itself. Now, that's a high sensitivity, meaning it might be good with tube amps. 30 hertz? I mean, I'm like, holy cow, how do you get 30 hertz out of that thing? And that's it. Doesn't tell me anything. I'd like to know the crossover point. I'd love to know if they're running that as a full range with that whizzer. Are they running it as a full range speaker and using that tweeter as a super tweeter? I'd love to know a lot more. What was the designer thinking? But I bought the damn thing in orange. I picked orange because I looked through the Tecton website for other speakers in that orange color. That orange looked pretty handsome. I've never taken a chance on a wild speaker color before. So So that's what I did. Their own order, their own back order. I think I'm going to give Tecton a call and see if I can have a chat with a representative or the owner or somebody, and see if I can ask them a little bit about the design. I'd love to know what they were thinking. I have no idea. Now, this is sort of the cousin. Let me read what it says here. Here's what it says. The Auras, forgive me. Please forgive me. I have no clue. Auras, I'm going to ask them how to pronounce it. I am so sorry. Urus. I'm sorry. Is very similar to our popular Lure design, but with a ribbon tweeter, giving an even more dynamic, responsive, and detailed sound to an already amazing speaker. Well, I can tell you, I went on YouTube and other places and I looked up the Lure design, and people rave about it. So I was excited about that. Now the Lure design has the tweeter below the woofer, and here they've chosen to place the tweeter above the woofer, so I wonder what the difference there is. But I'm excited, and I'm excited to see how this couples to my room at the cottage. And I'm going to do a full review of the speaker to see. I hope it's a giant killer, to be honest with you. I'm going to compare it to 3 or 4 different speakers that I own, including those bookshelf clips that I have. And I might even bring over the Forte 3s as well. All of my speakers, including the Klipschorns, are downstairs in storage, all wrapped up, because again, I don't have my sound room anymore. But yeah, I'm excited, and we'll see what comes of it. Waiting for them to arrive, and again, they're on back order, and we shall see. I'm going to do a thorough review. I'm going to nurture it because I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to tell you when I get them. I'll show you everything. And also, what I like about this, I meant to say, is they're accessible at $1,200 a pair. Delivered, by the way, $1,200 a pair delivered.